48% of cancer carers are working either full-time or part-time. That's potentially 500,000 people who are trying to juggle work with caring for someone with cancer.
The company's got its job to do and it's got to be successful, but you need to feel that you've got some sort of tangible support around you.
I felt I was very much the problem case in the company, and all I was wanting to do was support my husband whilst performing my duties in the workplace.
Macmillan defines a carer as someone who's looking after a person living with cancer who couldn't manage without that help. Carers have a range of responsibilities when they're looking after someone with cancer, and that can include things like personal care, shopping and cooking and cleaning, but it also involves often getting involved with treatment. And we find that caring for someone with cancer can affect you physically, emotionally, it can affect your work, your finances. If they're worried about the person at home who's ill, it makes it harder for them to perhaps focus and give work everything.
Leo was a major in the British Army, in the Royal Engineers, and Leo was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which is a cancer of the blood. He was actually diagnosed just after we got back from our honeymoon back in 1993. When we realised that Leo was going to need to go into hospital for treatment, I decided to keep working as normal. My view is that you need two working adults to pay a mortgage, and also wanted the normality of going to work every morning.
I think it's important for managers to be sensitive to the fact that becoming a carer can happen overnight. It can take the employee a while to actually adjust to that, and obviously they're under a lot of emotional stress because somebody close to them is ill. So just being sort of sensitive to the confidential and upsetting nature of the situation that they're dealing with.
My sister Lizzie, graphic designer, very artistic lady. We hadn't known any of the symptoms were leading to cancer, but she was diagnosed and told she had maybe even only days or weeks to live. On the day that Lizzie was diagnosed, when I got home in the afternoon, having seen her, and I was immediately thought, I've got to sort out work. It was an automatic decision to be Lizzie's carer, but obviously I was very concerned about maintaining my quality of work as much as I could. You immediately feel, how the heck are you going to achieve that? You know, it's a conflict you don't think you're going to have, and nothing else compares to that sort of conflict, really.
Carers do have some rights in the workplace. One of the most important ones is the right to request flexible working. This isn't automatically a right to receive it, but employers do need to consider such requests on their merit. Another right that employees have is the right to time off in emergencies. This may be unpaid, but they do have this right if a situation arises where they need to care for somebody at short notice.
For a number of weeks, things worked fine in a sense because I was able to be flexible. They gave me a laptop to work at home. I used to get up at 5, work from 6 till 9, pick up Lizzie, take her to the hospital, go through the chemotherapy, bring her back, either sit with her or sometimes she'd just be exhausted, and then I'd just go back to the laptop and work till 10, 11 at night.
During the period for one of Leo's bone marrow transplants, the most practical thing to do was actually live in the hospital during the week, sleeping at the end of his bed on a fold-up bed. Some of the time I would find myself being woken up in the middle of the night by a team of doctors coming in to administer treatment or to revive Leo in the worst case, and then of course in the morning get up and go to work. At that time, I was basically in survival mode and purely concentrating on the essential things. What was more difficult was simple things like doing the shopping for food, which was mainly done late at night at a petrol forecourt. Certainly all the me time type activities such as going to the gym or getting your hair cut or going to the dentist would just fall by the wayside.
One of the most important ways for actually supporting carers in the workplace is for managers to set up good communication, good two-way communication, so that the carer feels they can speak to them openly and confidentially about any concerns they might have or any changes they might need to make to their working patterns. Cancer is a fluctuating condition, so it's difficult for carers to predict exactly when they're going to need time off work, and that's why it's helpful for managers to be flexible.
I realised perhaps 3 weeks or so before Lizzie was passing away that there was a definite decline. I phoned up and I just said I'm absolutely terrified because I might lose my job now. But she now needs 24/7. I can't work anymore. I can't have that compromise. When I got the message back that there was no way I would lose my job, it was just a massive, massive relief. I needed that security, and actually at that level it was also felt like some sort of personal care in a sense, that somebody cared.
It's important that the workplace has its own dedicated carers policy so that if someone becomes a carer, especially at short notice, they can refer to the policy and see what provision the organisation makes for them. So this would include things like their legal rights as a carer, but also any special provisions made by the organisation, such as dedicated carers leave or the different types of flexible working offered by the organisation.
Shortly after the bone marrow transplant itself was the annual performance review. Regrettably, I was marked in the very bottom box because it was felt that I didn't really exhibit that going that extra mile type of behaviour that they were looking for. So at the very time that I was going through a real period of crisis, the most difficult thing I've ever had to face in my life, I was being expected to not only achieve but to exceed achievements at work. But when I realised I would just have 8 weeks to turn the situation around or else lose my job, I basically had a little bit of a breakdown and I just ran off to the GP and just said I can't cope anymore.
Carers are also protected under the Equality Act to ensure they are not discriminated against in the workplace. Discrimination in the workplace can take many forms. It can be as simple as overlooking somebody for a promotion, or it can be more obvious discrimination of individuals excluding that person or making derogatory comments about them because of the situation that they're in.
It's important that line managers respect confidentiality and privacy of the cancer carer, but with their permission it can be helpful to perhaps talk to the rest of the team to think about how workloads can perhaps be reallocated, and also keep in communication with other departments and managers about maybe adjusting deadlines and schedules to accommodate the fact that someone might need to take time off to care. A lot of carers find it helpful to actually speak to someone who's going through the same experience. So managers might want to consider setting up a buddying system. Macmillan does actually provide guidelines on this, and it involves sort of matching up people who would like to support a fellow carer who's maybe finding it difficult to combine working and caring.
I can look back at a time when I was very happy, very fulfilled. And I think, sadly, I have been scarred by the conflict between the work situation and fulfilling your obligations as a carer. Something close to post-traumatic stress, looking back at that period, and just realising that the rug could get pulled away from you or could have been pulled away from you at any time. And I've really had to work on that with counselling and support from friends and anywhere I can get the support, including Macmillan.
We're at work the greater part of our lives, and hopefully we're in a work environment where we'll stay there because we're valued and we value work. So for what is relatively a short space of time, but the most horrendous situation generally that people can go through, don't treat them with kid gloves. Treat them with the respect of the strength that they have and the fact that they've worked for you and they've given everything to you as well. Let them know exactly what the policies are, but also let them know you're prepared to be flexible, and let that person feel that they're empowered to take responsibility for dealing with something that is that important to them in that time in life.
For information, help, or if you just want to chat, call the Macmillan support line on 0808 808 0000 or visit macmillan.org.uk.